Well, looks like we just might finish the second book today. We'll see how far along we get here. We'll see how deep this goes. So we're on the third means, the 46th Sutra, the light of the soul, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And here we go. The 46th, the posture assumed must be steady and easy. This sutra is one that has led our Occidental students into a great deal of trouble, for they have interpreted it in an entirely physical sense. Ooh, this ought to be good. That it has a physical meaning is true, but taken in reference to the lower threefold nature, it might be said that it refers to a steady, immovable position of the physical body when in meditation, a firm, steadfast, unwavering condition of the astral or emotional body in the passage through worldly existence, and an unfluctuating, steady mind, one that is absolutely under control. Of these three, it might be said that the physical posture is of the least importance, and the position in which the aspirant can the soonest forget that he possesses a physical body is the best. It might be generally laid down that an upright position in a comfortable chair, with the spine erect, the feet crossed naturally, the hands folded in the lap, the eye closed, and the chin a little dropped, is the best posture for the Occidental aspirant. An upright position in a comfortable chair, with the spine erect, the feet crossed naturally, the hands folded in the lap, the eye closed, and the chin a little dropped, is the best posture for the Occidental aspirant. Now, many esoteric schools, I want to say, they don't necessarily even suggest crisscross applesauce or different meditation positions. They are mostly all sitting in chairs, and having that back support is important, unless you are really versed or really trained in that and have really awesome posture. So yeah, this is great. This is great stuff right here. It's important to have heard this. I'm glad we see this right now. So in the East, there is a science of postures and about 84 different positions, some of them most intricate and painful, are listed. This science is a branch of Hatha Yoga and is not to be followed by the fifth root race. It is a remnant of that yoga which was necessary and sufficient for the Lemurian root race, who needed to learn physical control. Bhakti yoga, or the yoga of the devotee, was the yoga of the Atlantean or fourth root race, plus a little Hatha yoga. In this fifth root race, the Aryan Hatha yoga should fall into the desuetude altogether. Where the disciple is concerned, he should occupy himself with Raja Yoga plus Bhakti Yoga. He should be a mental devotee. The Lemurian disciple learned to control the physical body and to devote it to the service of the Vara through Hatha Yoga with aspiration towards emotional control. The Atlantean disciple learned to control the emotional body and to devote it to the service of Ishvara through Bhakti Yoga with aspiration towards mental control. And the Aryan disciple has to learn to control the mental body and devote it to the service of Ishvara through Raja Yoga with aspiration towards knowledge of the indweller, the soul. Thus, in this root race, the entire lower man, the personality, is subjugated and the transfiguration of humanity takes place. In this root race, the entire lower man, the personality, is subjugated and the transfiguration of humanity takes place. That's pretty huge. All right, the 47th Sutra. Steadiness and ease of posture is to be achieved through persistent, slight effort and through the concentration of the mind upon the infinite. This covers the two aspects which in meditation produce difficulty, the comfort of the body and the control of the mind. It is noteworthy that the effort to attain forgetfulness of the physical body through correct posture is brought about through steady, gentle, persistent practice rather than through a violent forcing of the body into postures and attitudes unaccustomed and uncomfortable. Yeah, that's counterintuitive, right? When this can be done, and when the mind can be so engrossed upon a consideration of the things of the soul, then steadiness and ease characterize the man on the physical plane. He is forgetful of the physical vehicle and hence can concentrate the mind, and his concentration of the mind is then so one-pointed that thought of the body becomes impossible. There's a fine line here, that you don't want to be putting yourself in positions that are uncomfortable. That serves no purpose. So this position of being, in a chair, upright, with your legs crossed naturally, that's just a very benign kind of, it's the middle way, really. It's not some austere, position that doesn't make sense to us. You might need some of those positions if you're trying to levitate. Or if you're levitating, you don't want your feet dropping out from under you. And listen, I'm really just kidding here, and I'm mainly kidding. Figure if you can levitate, you know what position your body needs to be in anyway. So let's just keep going from there. Yeah, you just want it to be just there, right? We're walking the middle mile, but it's neither there, and we're able to focus elsewhere, right? And literally elsewhere. So 48th Sutra, when this is attained, the pairs of opposites no longer limit. And that point is clear before we even get into this. The pairs of opposites concern the desire body, and it is significant that in the preceding sutra, only the mind and physical body were dealt with. In this sutra, the emotional nature expressing itself through desire fails to be influenced by the pull of any attractive force. The astral body becomes quiescent and non-assertive, unresponsive to any lure from the world of illusion. Limpid is also a word that DK uses a lot in regard to the astral body. It becomes just very quiet and limpid, and just not much going on there. It's just steady. There is a great mystery concerned with the astral body of man and with the astral light. And the nature of the mystery is still only known to advanced initiates. The astral light is thrown into objectivity by two producing factors, and the astral body of a man is responsive to two types of energy. They seem essentially in themselves to lack character or form, but to be dependent for manifestation only. For manifestation upon that which is above and that which is below. The desire nature of man, for instance, seems to respond to the lure of the great world of illusion, the Maya of the senses, or to the voice of the ego using the mental body. Vibrations reach the astral body from the physical plane and from the mental world. And according to the nature of the man and to the point in evolution which he has reached, so will be the response to the higher or lower call. So it's kind of bridging here, right? Like, look, we're in the middle, right? We're talking right now, we're talking about the astral plane, the astral body, the emotional body, the desire body. Above you have the mental, below you have the physical. Which way are you looking up or are you looking down? Which way are we, which way is this going? And that is a choice. Or, are we, it's the union. It's in a sense, right? I don't want to step over outside of my pay grade. Because here's where the union of spirit and matter are really taking place, but this is the lower, and a lower reflection. This is a lower reflection of that, as that the emotional body is really supposed to be a reflection of the Buddhic down here. So this is bridging the mental and physical, and up here we're bridging and uniting spirit and matter. So it's a reflection of that. So which way are we looking? Steadily, for real though. The desired nature of man, for instance, since the response to the word of the great world of illusion, all right, vibrations reach the astral body from the physical plane and from the mental world. So it's coming up and down. We're in the middle here. It's kind of hitting from both sides. And so will be the response to the higher or the lower. So what are magnetically? Now this mentions magnetic attraction here, right? Using fortunes, essentially. No, it does not mention it being magnetic, but the attraction. Yeah, okay, so it's expressing itself through desire. The emotional nature expressing itself through desire fails to be influenced by the pull of any attractive force. And that's like, if I could say it, it's probably like the mantra of the Libra is, I choose the way that leads between the two great lines of force. And also that would be the razor's edge path, the middle way, the, letting go of the attractions. That way you're not being pulled. So this is, another, what are you being pulled towards? What are we being pulled towards? Is it necessary? Are we ready to give it up and move on? And then release those attractions. And then once we're released, we can look up and be polarized more towards spirit. The astral body is either attentive to the egoic impression or swayed by the million voices of earth. Egoic impression, okay? We're either being swayed by what is above or the millions of voices down here on the physical plane. It apparently has no voice of its own, no character of its own. The astral body now. The astral body is either attentive to the egoic impression or swayed by the million voices of earth. It apparently has no voice of its own, no character of its own. This has been pictured for us in the Gita, where Arjuna stands midway between the two opposing forces of good and evil and searches for the right attitude to both. astral plane is the battleground of the soul, the place of victory or the place of defeat. It is the Kurukshetra upon which the great choice is made. And it's an illusion. Once we move past that, the astral plane is not. There is no astral plane after. In hindsight, that was never there for you, even though apparently it's there. It's not there. So it's an amazing thing. You know, we discussed this stuff very deeply in Glamour, a world problem, and you know, the difference between glamour and illusion and Maya and the dweller on the threshold, and getting through the astral plane. And that's what also what a treatise on white magic is about, is getting the disciple aspirant through past the astral plane, right? And beyond the second initiation, which is the baptism in Jordan, and also, which is also called stream entry in Buddhism. And that's, you know, a goal of many of us here on earth today, is to get past the astral plane. In these sutras concerning posture, the same idea lies latent. The physical plane and the mental plane are emphasized, and it is brought out that when they are adjusted rightly, when poise on the physical plane and one-pointedness on the mental plane are attained, then the pairs of opposites no longer limit. The point of balance is reached and the man is liberated. The scales of a man's life are absolutely adjusted and he stands free. And then it says, you know, this happens here, and then it's at every initiation that this the same process is happening and repeating itself on a higher turn of the spiral, is what I want to say DK says. On a higher, you know, on the higher planes, this is what's happening again and again and again, all the way until you're launched out into the cosmos after these initiations. After we get through all of these. All right, we're going to move into the fourth means, which is pranayama. And we know this is going to have to do with breathing. So let's see, 49th Sutra. When right posture or asana has been attained, there follows right control of prana and proper inspiration and expiration of the breath. You know, I'll just throw this out there. One of the very first books I ever read, one of the first esoteric books I ever read, was Science of the Breath by Yogi Ramacharaka, I believe is what it is. And I found it on sacredtext.com. And it was very talking about the different types of breathing and how we're supposed to breathe. Very good book. I don't know how in depth we're going to get here. Let's see. Here again, we come to a sutra that has led to much misunderstanding and much mischief. Teaching on the control of prana is prevalent and has led to the following of breathing exercises and to the practices dependent for their success upon the suspension of the breathing process. Most of this has been caused by a belief in the Occidental mind that prana and breath are synonymous terms. This is by no means the case. Vivekananda points this out in his commentary on the sutra in the following words. When the posture has been conquered, then this motion is to be broken and controlled. And thus we come to pranayama, the controlling of the vital forces of the body. Prana is not breath, though it is usually so translated. It is the sum total of cosmic energy. It is the energy that is in each body, and its most apparent manifestation is the motion of the lungs. And I heard somebody say the other day, the lungs are the pump, the heart is the valve for the lungs. And it's obviously the case when we look at it. This motion is caused by prana drawing in the breath, and is what we seek to control in pranayama. We begin by controlling the breath as the easiest way of getting control of the prana. And I know that, I want to say that, the spleen has something to do with prana as well, or a lot to do with it. So prana is the sum total of the energy in the body, and this applies equally to the planetary and solar body. It therefore concerns the inflow of energy into the etheric body and its outflow through the medium of the physical body. In the physical body, this is symbolized for us in the necessary inspiration and exhalation of the breath. By stressing the physical act of breathing, much of the true sense of this sutra has been lost. So this is more about prana than it is the actual process of breathing. Certain things should be remembered as one studies pranayama. First, that one of the main purposes of the etheric body is that it acts as a stimulator and the energizer of the dense physical body. Okay. It is almost as if the dense physical body had no independent existence, but simply acted as it was swayed and motivated by the etheric body. And like we saw earlier in the means, even just a few sutras ago, maybe yesterday or the day before, it was that the etheric body is an exact replica of the physical body, essentially. And we know the etheric body is made by put together by one thread. And connecting us to everything and everyone as well. It's one thread. The etheric body is the force or vital body, and it permeates every part of the dense vehicle. It is the background, the true substance of the physical body. According to the nature of the force animating the etheric body, according to the activity of that force in the etheric body, according to the aliveness of the sluggishness of the most important parts of the etheric body, the centers up the spine, so will be the corresponding activity of the physical body. You gotta love some of these the way these things are put together. It's unbelievable. How can somebody, how can you string this much brilliance into one sentence? Similarly and symbolically, according to the wholeness of the breathing apparatus, and according to the ability of that apparatus to oxygenate and render pure the blood, so will be the health or wholeness of the dense physical body. It should also be remembered that the key to the just response of the lower to the higher lies in rhythm and in the ability of the physical body to respond or vibrate in rhythmic unison with the etheric body. Students have found out that this is much facilitated by steady, even breathing. And the majority of the breathing exercises, when emphasized to the exclusion of the previous three means of yoga, the commandments, rules, and posture, have a definite effect upon the etheric centers and may lead to disastrous results. Right. It is most necessary that students should follow the means of yoga in order in which they are given by Patanjali, and see to it that the purificatory process, the discipline of the outer and inner life, and one-pointedness of the mind should be aimed at prior to attempting the regulation of the etheric vehicle through breathing and the awakening of the centers. The work done through pranayama might briefly be stated to be the following. 1, the oxygenation of the blood, and hence the cleansing of the blood currents and consequent physical health. The bringing of the physical body into a vibration synchronous with that of the etheric body. This results in the complete subjugation of the dense physical body and its bringing into line with the etheric body. The two parts of the physical vehicle form a unit. The transmission of energy via the etheric body to all parts of the dense physical body. This energy may come from various sources. From the planetary aura, in this case, it is planetary prana, and so concerns primarily the spleen and the health of the physical body. And B, from the astral world via the astral body, this will be purely kamic or desire force and will affect primarily the centers below the diaphragm. And C, from the universal mind or monastic force, this will be largely thought force and will go to the throat center. And from the ego itself, stimulating primarily the head and heart centers. Most people receive force only from the physical and astral planes, but disciples receive force also from the mental and egoic levels. Very deep. And we call these, prana, it's interesting, man. I don't know. As you saw, I saw yet, I don't know if we saw it on here, but first ray energies transmitted by Uranus, and then second ray Neptune, third ray Saturn. We can, you keep going, you can go down. But I would be mistaken if I tried to say what they all are. I don't want to go there. Because I'm not exactly sure. And this also relates to astrology and what what's in your actual astrology chart, and then it also depends on what the transits you have going on are as well, as to what type of energy that the forces that are moving through you, and how they're helping you and guiding you to through this whole process that we're looking at here as well. Because really, without that backdrop, we're really not getting anywhere. So there is this need to understand our astrology as well. And today's astrology is quite impressive. I want to say there's newer things coming along that probably weren't there before. Not to say that they didn't have a good grasp of astrology, and I've heard that it was actually better during periods than it is now. But nevertheless, we do have pretty good understanding. All right, let's keep going here. Uh-oh. This is the most difficult sutra to understand. This is going to be, probably going to be very interesting. So let's pay attention. All right, we're on the 50th sutra, right control of prana. Or the life currents is external, internal, or motionless. It is subject to place, time, and number, and is also protracted or brief. Okay, this is the most difficult sutra to understand, and its meaning has been made purposely abstruse, owing to the dangerous incident to the control of the bodily forces. The ideas and teaching conveyed fall into three parts. Whoa, okay. I'm going to be right back. We're going to finish this up here, and then I have to go take a break and do something for a minute. All right, sorry about that. Let's see. So we're on the most difficult sutra to understand. And its meaning has been made purposely abstruse, owing to the dangerous incidents of the control of the bodily forces. The idea and teachings conveyed fall into three parts. The external, internal, or motionless control of the life currents of the body, dense or etheric. This concerns 1, the breathing apparatus and the use of the breath, 2, the vital airs and their irradiation. Oh, well, there's something definitely abstruse and hidden in there. 3, the centers and their awakening. 4, the Kundalini fire and its right progression up the spine. The astrological significance of the relation of the man to his group, planetary or otherwise. All right, so sorry, I'm going to read this again because I read it and it did not register. All right. 2 is the astrological significance and the relation of the man to his group, planetary or otherwise. This is dealt with in the words place, time, and number. All right, this is certainly abstruse here. All right, 3, the process of elimination and the production of response in the physical man via the brain to the higher impressions. This ability to respond to the voice of the ego and to become quiescent and receptive must precede the last 4 means of yoga, which do not so immediately concern the dense physical plane or the etheric levels of consciousness. The process of illumination and the production of response in the physical man via the brain to the higher impressions. Okay, so, and we did talk about this yesterday in a sense, right? And that process. And how that process progresses and how we do it. All right, so it will be obvious that much of the teaching conveyed in this sutra can only safely be given directly by the teacher to the pupil after a proper study of the bodily conditions of that pupil. It is not possible nor right to give any book intended for the general public those rules, practices, and methods which enabled the trained disciple to bring his dense physical vehicle into instantaneous synchronization with his etheric body, to densify and irradiate his aura so as to produce certain magnetic results in his environment, and to awaken his center so that certain psychic powers are displayed. The method for arousing the Kundalini fire and blending it with the downpouring egoic force must also be left for direct teaching by a master in this science to his pupil. There is extreme danger attendant upon the premature awakening of the fire and the consequent destruction of certain protective structures in the etheric body and the breaking down of the barriers between this world and the astral, before the pupil is properly balanced between pairs of opposites. There is a menace in the premature growth of the lower psychic powers before the higher nature is awakened. And the effect upon the brain can be seen as insanity or in some form or other, mild or the reverse. I'm not laughing. This is the dangers of this, which have been mentioned many times. This whole process is dangerous. It can burn you up. A few explanatory words can, however, be given, which will enable the true occult student to gain that information, which, if correctly used, acts as a key to the possession of more. This is ever the occult method. Let us therefore deal briefly with our 3 points. 1, the external control of the prana or life currents concerns those breathing exercises and rhythmic practices which bring the physical organs allied with the etheric centers into proper condition. These physical organs are themselves never specifically dealt with by the white magician or occultist. They are dealt with in black magic and consist of the brain, the lungs, the heart, the spleen, and the generative organs. The black magician definitely utilizes these physical parts of the body to generate a type of force, which is a mixture of etheric force and dense physical energy, to enable him to do certain forms of magical work and also to produce effects on the physical bodies of animals and men. It is a knowledge of this which is the basis of voodooism and of all those practices which cause the depletion and death of men and women who obstruct the path of the black magician or are regarded by him as enemies. With these, the aspirant to the mysteries of the Brotherhood of the Great White Lodge has nothing to do. He brings about the merging of the 2 parts of the dense physical and the synchronization of the rhythm of the 2 bodies and of the consequent unity of the entire lower man through the attention to the etheric breath and rhythm. This inevitably produces the external control of the life currents. The internal control of the life currents is brought about in 3 ways: by an intellectual understanding of the nature of the etheric body and the laws of its life, through a consideration of the types of energy and of their apparatus, the system of centers to be found in the etheric body, and 3, through certain developments in knowledge which come to the aspirant when he is ready, having attended to the previous means of yoga, and which give him the ability to tap certain types of force, energies, and shaktis, to utilize them correctly through the medium of his own centers, and to produce effects which come under the descriptive terms illuminative, purificatory, magnetic, dynamic, psychic, and magic. The motionless control of the life currents is the motionless control of the life currents is the effect of the proper development of the other 2, external and internal control, and must be present before the 5th means of yoga, withdrawal or abstraction, becomes possible. It simply indicates perfectly balanced synchronization and the complete unification of the 2 parts of the physical body, so there is no impediment to the outgoing or incoming forces. When motionless control is reached, the yogi can withdraw from his physical body at will, or can pull in that body and manipulate at will any of the 7 great planetary forces. That's a pretty high level of achievement there. It should be borne in mind that the ideal condition is here dealt with, and that no aspirant can achieve this means of yoga without working simultaneously at the other means also. The study of the parallelism in nature is of value here. The astrological significance is also hinted at here in the 3 words, place, time, and number. And these words, the universal triplicities, must be recognized, and right control of the life currents must be seen to be related to karma, opportunity, and form. There are certain words which, when rightly understood, give the key to all practical occultism and make the yogi a master of life. They are sound, number, color, and form, and word, life, light, and body. And these are recognized as subject to the space idea and the time element. It should be borne in mind in this connection that space is the first entity, and that cyclic manifestation is the law of life. When this is recognized, the entity expressing itself cyclically will make its presence felt through differentiation, through the color or quality of the veiling form, and through the form itself. These factors make up the sum total of the expression of an entity or of any identity, God or man, and the appearance of any man in exoteric expression on the physical plane is dependent upon the rhythmic or cyclic outgoing or indrawing energy of the great life in whom he lives and moves and has his being. This is the basis of the science of astrology, or the relationship of the planet or planets to the human being, and of their relation to the stars and the various signs of the zodiac. Some knowledge of this is essential to the right control of the life currents, so that the disciple can avail himself of the times and seasons wherein progress can be expedited. Yeah, and this is exactly what we said earlier. So that's good. And we know that, we study astrology, our own astrology. We keep track of our transits, and we pay attention to how these things are, not just the outer expression, but also the esoteric sense of astrology as well, and how progress can be expedited, and when it's time of opportunity is, and see what, as we get to know, these energies and forces, and we see what's moving us and what's coming into our life at these times and places and seasons, and we're more aware. It's about being aware. We used to be aware. I right away think of Gurdjieff, as he's made us and talked about being super aware of the body, but now we're super aware of our entire system. Three, the process of illuminating the lower man becomes possible through the right control of the pranas, and this illuminating process is an exact science for which these 4 means of yoga have prepared the way. The fires of the body are justly arranged, the motionless condition can be somewhat reached, the vital airs in the head are at peace, and the entire lower man awaits one of 2 processes. A, the withdrawal of the true or spiritual man in order to function on some higher plane, or the bringing down into the lower brain consciousness of light, illumination, and knowledge from the planes of the ego. Big difference. Let's go on to the 51st Sutra. There is a fourth stage which transcends those dealing with the internal and external phases. We have seen how the control of the life currents can be either externally active, internally active, or balanced. This triple process brings the entire lower personal man into a condition first of rhythmic response to the inner motivating factor, in this case, the ego or spiritual man on his own plane. Here we go over here. And then of complete quiescence or stillness. This latter condition of receptive waiting, if one might so call it, is succeeded by one of a form of higher activity. This is literally the imposition of a new rate of vibration on the lower, the sounding forth of a new note emanating from the inner spiritual man, which produces certain definite effects in the three sheaths, which constitute the lower self and which veils the divinity, which is man. These changes are dealt with in the next two sutras. The work of the average aspirant is most frequently given to preparing the sheath so that this fourth stage can become possible. His attention is concentrated upon the attainment of 1, the conscious coordination of three bodies or sheaths. 2, their dual alignment. 3, the regulation of the rhythm of the sheaths so that they are synchronized with each other and with the rate of the egoic impression. 4, their unification into one coherent whole so that the man is literally the 3 in 1 and the 1 in 3. And 5, quiescence, or the attitude of positive receptivity to the higher inspiration and downflow of egoic life and energy. It may help the student if he realizes that the right control of prana involves the recognition that energy is the sum total of existence and of manifestation, and that the three lower bodies are energy bodies, which are forming a vehicle for the higher type of energy and being themselves transmitters of energy. The energies of the lower man are energies of the third aspect, the Holy Ghost, or Brahma aspect. The energy of the spiritual man is the second aspect, the Christ force or Buddhi. The object of evolution in the human family is to bring this Christ force, the principle of Buddhi, into full manifestation upon the physical plane, and this through the utilization of the lower triple sheath. This triple sheath is the Holy Grail, the cup which is the receiver and the container of the life of God. When the lower man is brought into proper response through the attention to the four means of yoga already considered, two results begin to manifest in him, and he is ready to use the remaining four means, which will reorient him and bring him eventually to liberation. There's a lot going on in here. And as we mentioned, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn. And also the Holy Ghost, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, right? And we're looking, everything we're discussing is always in triplicities, always triplicities, and always triplicities. And I was told this a few times, and it was reminded to me again. If we can grasp these triplicities, especially at this level here, right here, will, wisdom, activity, the first ray, second ray, third ray energies, and we're all these esoteric this esoteric doctrine, the ageless wisdom, should always should be much easier to understand if we can know that this is all done in triplicities. And these triplicities go higher. So, just like this mental, emotional, and physical, we saw that it also becomes atmic, buddhi, and manas. So the triplicity moves up a notch. So it's changed. It moves on to the next triplicity and the next triplicity. All right. And this one here being the and we're looking at the 2-4-6 line. Now this triplicity being the 1 differentiated to 3, the monad expressing itself as will, the 1 expressing itself as will, wisdom, intelligent activity, and moving down into the spiritual. And then we have the spiritual triad. So these triplicities remain in a very instant way. The sheath, there's no, the Master DK says, at this level, there's no, the veil is so thin that there's no difference between the two. It's pretty incredible. Now our veils, our sheaths, our bodies, however you want to call it down here, are much more recognizable. But also don't forget, we're dealing with Maya and illusion and glamour and our dweller. So, all right, we're moving on to the 52nd sutra. Through this, that which obscures the light is gradually removed. The first result is the gradual wearing away or attenuation of the material forms which hide the reality. This does not mean the wasting away of the forms, but the steady refining and transmutation of the matter with which they are constructed, so that they become so purified and clarified that the light of God, which they have hitherto hidden, can shine forth in all its beauty in the 3 worlds down here. All right. And we're talking about the soul, I assume there. This can be demonstrated as literally true upon the physical plane, through the work of purification and the control of the life currents. The light in the head becomes so apparent that it can be seen by those who have supernatural vision as radiations extending all around the head, thus forming the halo, so well known in pictures of the saints. The halo is a fact in nature and not just a symbol. It is the result of the work of Raja Yoga and is the physical demonstration of the life and light of the spiritual man. Vivekananda says, speaking technically, and it is good for Western occult students to master the technique and terminology of this science of the soul, which the East has held in trust for so long. The chitta has, the mind stuff, has by its own nature all knowledge. It is made of sattva particles, spirit, but is covered by rajas and tamas particles, and by the pranayama, this covering is removed. And we had discussed this early on too. I mean, I don't want to confuse anybody. It's related to the emotional and physical are removed, and also this lower mental. So once we get into this range at the higher levels of the abstract levels of the mental plane, things are very different here. Okay, this is spiritual world. This does not have anything to do necessarily with the physical, with the lower three worlds here that we're talking about. All right, the 53rd Sutra, and the mind is prepared for concentrated meditation. Johnston's edition gives a beautiful rendering of this sutra in the words, thence comes the mind's power to hold itself in the light. The idea being that once the condition of quiescence has been reached and the fourth stage of supernormal impression has been made possible, the remaining means of yoga, abstraction, attention, meditation, and contemplation can be properly undertaken. The mind can be gripped and used in the process of transmitting the knowledge, light, and wisdom from the ego or soul to the brain via the mind can be safely undertaken. Let's keep going. Let's do the means verse, means 5, abstraction or pratyahara. So, the 54th Sutra, abstraction or pratyahara is the subjugation of the senses by the thinking principle and their withdrawal from that which has hitherto been their object. This is just, the union of spirit and matter or yoga here is just so profound, sticks right out. If we look at this in terms that you are creating consciousness, and your thinking principles and what is, comes into your to your vehicle down here, and what enters into this becomes a physical expression. And in that we have yoga, in that, we have an understanding of mind, and we also have a deeper understanding of the union between spirit and matter. And this process of how it's coming down, and this is the constitution of man, it's coming down into the physical and expressing itself on the physical plane. We can always be looking up, always. We really don't, really don't ever have to look out, especially if we're, dealing in this. So abstraction, all right, here we go. So the two being their object, principle of withdrawal. Abstraction is the subjugation of the senses by the thinking principle and their withdrawal from that which has hitherto been their object. Right. Okay. We're releasing our attraction to things here. And we're going up. This sutra summarizes for us the work done in control of the psychic nature and gives us the result achieved when the thinker, through the medium of the mind, the thinking principle, so dominates the senses that they have no independent expression of their own. Before attention, meditation, and contemplation, the last three means of yoga, can be properly undertaken, not only must the outer conduct be corrected, not only must inner purity be arrived at, not only must the right attitude towards all things be cultivated and the life currents consequently controlled, but the capacity to subjugate the outgoing tendencies of the five senses must be worked at. So the aspirant is taught the right withdrawal or abstraction of the consciousness which is outgoing towards the world of phenomena and must learn to center his consciousness in the great central station in the head, from whence the energy can be consciously distributed as he participates in the great work, from whence he can make a contact with the realm of the soul, and in which he can receive the messages and impressions which emanate from that realm. So we're making this subtle so we can receive the impressions from higher, and these things can move down in the flow without obstruction. Because if you're all wonky here, what's coming from up here is not going to be able to get out. This is a definite stage of achievement and not simply a symbolic way of expressing one-pointed interest. Yeah, okay. This is just so much going on here. Sometimes, some of these things just really shut us up pretty quickly. And it should, and that's exactly what should happen. So we're learning how to use this chart. We're learning how to use this. Now, I want to say that the world of phenomena down here is it is intense, man. That's why this is known as the playground of the gods. This is where there's high emotional idealism up here, where it's really reflecting the love coming from the Buddhic plane and the monadic plane, the love aspect and wisdom. It's very high emotional. We think that we made it somewhere to some level of enlightenment. And technically, technically maybe that's the case. I don't know. But we still have a long ways to go because we're down here, right? We just got up here. But also the astral plane is where we are fearful of the monsters of our own making down on the lower two levels of the astral plane. This is where fear resides as well. So we also have fear and its polar opposite up top there. So we want out of this playground of the gods. This is where you can make things, destroy things. There's all this, you're living the dream in this, and you're expressing it down here. So we're living in the lower two, and there's maybe there's always got to be a little, I want to say there has to be, at this point, for most of us, some mental, but we're really not reaching up. The aspirant is said to become a monastic, which is in this area. So average humanity, I don't know. I think the average human is polarized in this, and in knowing that, you should be able to walk out of your house and be able to see this. And you should be able to stay higher and don't get sucked into this. Just that happens at some point, whether it's today or the next, or down the line after we get some more work in. I don't know, but that will happen. So the various avenues of sense perceptions are brought into a quiescent condition. The consciousness of the real man no longer surges outwards on the 5 avenues of contact. The 5 senses are dominated by the 6th sense, the mind, and all the consciousness and the perceptive faculty of the aspirant is synthesized in the head and turns inward and upward. And where you probably we know where we're at in the process, I would assume. You can sense these things. Some can feel these things, the progression of the centers being the rotation speeding up. We can sense the the movement, and which centers potentially are active. And there's a lot going on here, but it's also very individual at that point. And I'm gonna leave it there. I don't go into personal stuff there. I don't want to right now, because everyone's experience is different. So, and in that we have the five senses are dominated, the psychic nature is thereby subjugated, and the mental plane becomes the field of man's activity. So now we're over the waters of the astral plane. You're now walking on the waters. You've entered the stream of consciousness, essentially, which is the first level of Buddhist enlightenment, which is also called Sotapanna, or stream entry, and is also known as baptism in the Jordan. And that is when you no longer are pulled by this, and the astral plane is known and seen to be not real. All right, so then we have the withdrawal of the physical consciousness or perception through hearing, touch, sight, taste, smell. These modes of perception become temporarily dormant. A man's perception becomes simply mental, and the brain consciousness is all that is active on the physical plane. The withdrawal of the consciousness into the region of the pineal gland, so that man's point of realization is centralized in the region between the middle of the forehead and the pineal gland. The next stage is that of abstracting the consciousness into the head center, the thousand-petaled lotus, or Sahasrara. By knowingly withdrawing the consciousness out of the head. This can be done in full waking consciousness with certain rules, when certain rules are learned and certain work accomplished. These can obviously not be given in such a work as this. The majority of people have to master the first two stages and learn to control the avenues of perception, the five senses. So, it's a process. It should start sounding, I want to say it's sounding pretty simple at this point for us. It's becoming simplified by us reading it and synthesizing these things as we're going here, because we're bringing our consciousness higher. We're raising our consciousness higher, and by subjugating, by quieting everything down here on the lower three, and we're entering into the abstract. This is we're seeing this as a process, though. This is not something that happens quickly, and we're working towards this, I should say. We should recognize that we're working towards this, and even when it is achieved, we're still working towards the next. So, then we have the abstracting of the consciousness into the astral body, and thus freeing it from the physical plane. A still further withdrawal into the mental body or the mind, so that neither the physical nor the astral any longer limit or confine the man. It's like we're moving out through our We're clearing the way out here. And then when this can be done, true meditation and contemplation becomes possible. Devedi says in his commentary on this sutra, I know I botched these names, abstraction consists in the senses becoming entirely assimilated to or controlled by the mind. They must be drawn away from their objects and fixed upon the mind and assimilated to it, so that by preventing the transformation of the thinking principle, the sense also will follow it and be immediately controlled. Not only this, but they will be ever ready to contribute collectively toward the absorbing meditation of any given thing at any moment. The result, therefore, of correct abstraction or withdrawal is briefly, one, the synthesis of the senses by the sixth sense, the mind, the alignment of the threefold lower man so that the three bodies function as a coordinated unit, the freeing of the man from the limitations of the bodies, and the consequent ability of the soul or ego to impress and illuminate the brain through the medium of the mind. All right. And then we have the 55th Sutra. As a result of these means, there follows the complete subjugation of the sense organs. And they're taken under control, right? They're being controlled by the higher now. So in book 1, a general indication was given of the objective of Raja Yoga and of the hindrance to its practice, coupled with an indication of the benefits. In book 2, which we have just completed, the hindrances are specifically dealt with, the method of correcting them is indicated, and then the means of yoga are taken up. 5 out of the 8 being considered and explained. These 5 means, when duly followed, bring a man to the point where his lower psychic nature is being controlled, the senses are being mastered, and he can begin to undertake the subjugation of the sixth sense, the mind. The methods whereby the mind is controlled and the aspirant becomes complete master of the entire lower man are taken up in the next book. The remaining 3 means of yoga are explained, and then the results of yoga are given in detail. Students will find it useful to note the graded and accurate method outlined in this marvelous treatise. Yeah, it is very much graded, as we're working our way up, and we're being taught how to let go of the lower in lieu of the higher. And it's teaching us how to look up and inward and out of the body. The method whereby the mind is controlled and the aspirant becomes complete master of the lower man are taken up in the next book. The remaining 3 means of yoga are explained. Yoga are given in detail. Students will find it useful to note the great and accurate. It is valuable to note its brevity and yet its concise and complete nature. It is the textbook of an exact science, and within its few short pages are gathered all the rules necessary in the Aryan root race for the complete control of the mind, which should be the contribution of that race to the evolutionary process, because it was said, and we know this, Lemurian race focused on the physical, the Atlantean focused on the astral. It's for us in this time to build and the mental, the mind. And that will be our contribution to this time period. And that's what we're here doing this work. And that's part of our contribution to the whole, right? And you know, these things are going on in the evolutionary process naturally. But we are those who are pioneering this and really seeking to understand it and progress it much more quickly, and move further, faster, and fight harder, and all of that on a very real and subjective level, and are separating ourselves from this world. Transcending it. All right, you know, we're going to leave it there. This is really great. That was, you know, this was a process, you know, so, and this is part, you know, the part one being done. And this part one is our quest up this lower portion of the chart in the lower three worlds. And you can see that we're getting into the higher at this point. And I would say, and you know, and put on what DK says here, because I have a very basic understanding of some of the other books and where they're teaching to. The books that we've covered to date are also helping us get through these stages. So a treatise on white magic, like I said, is designed to get the disciple aspirant get through the past the astral plane. The Glamour is also a great book that kind of goes along with that, to help highlight and identify, you know, what even in even more detail what's going on here. So if you can see this picture that we're building, you know, we're working through these, and we're moving up and moving out. We're going higher and higher in this. Now, we would be amiss to mention, you know, esoteric psychology 1 and 2, and the treatise on the 7 rays, the books of that, which, you know, we'll see where this takes us. But esoteric psychology is really discussing physical, you know, these lower, the psychology of the lower 3. Right now, you know, we're really moving up out of this. We're really transcending this. We have a good idea of the human condition at that point, and we're progressing on. So very interesting and wild, and what a journey. Very beautiful. Okay, I will leave it there, and then we will pick back up on book 3, Union Achieved and its Results. So this is going to be great. All right, have a good one. Bye.